We are going live.
You going live? You going live? Hey, live.
It ain't no live.
They said, hey, live.
What's that?
She would have seen the screen. It just records the screen. It doesn't record you guys.
Oh.
All right. So we have done a little bit with scatter plots. We are going to do a little bit more with scatter plots. So a scatter plot is a graph with points plotted that shows a relationship between two sets of data. So when we talked about this earlier, I think it was actually last week we talked about this. Okay, we talked about, why are we talking over me while I'm teaching?
Because this dude keeps saying what she wants.
You in the first round.
He won't ask me. I'm telling you.
Chill. That's the first one. Okay, so last week when we talked about this, we talked about the more time that you spend studying, your grade should increase. We talked about the more you drive your car, the amount of gas that's in your car should go down. Okay, that is a relationship between two sets of data. Okay, so that creates what we call a scatter plot. Okay, this is considered bivariable data. It is a big word. It's probably an SAT word. Why are we calling it bivariable data?
It's two variables.
What does bi mean?
Two.
Two, like bicycle, two wheels.
Bisexual, two genders.
Bisexual, two genders. Okay, so bivariable data because you have two variables. So down at the bottom, they want to take this data and we are going to make a scatter plot. Okay, I showed you last week how to plug this into the calculator and do a scatter plot. We're going to do it by hand right here.
Oh, wait, I gotta get.
Okay, so my first point is 2.5, 68. So 2.5, 68 should probably be somewhere around right here. Okay, that's your first point.
Yeah.
We have a point at 0.5, 71.
Wait, where'd you end?
So 0.5, 71. We're inside the first flap.
Where's 0.5? Oh.
0.5 would be between 0 and 1. 4, 98. So we're on this last vertical line, almost touching the top line. 3, 91. Okay. The next one is 0.25, 40. So 0.25 is somewhere in the middle between 0 and 0.5. So we're probably somewhere like right here. Okay. We're making these as accurate as we can. It's not going to be perfect. Okay.
Okay, so if they give you a line and it's not scatter plot, what do you do? You still grab it.
What do you mean?
Like, you see how this is all over the place?
Mm-hmm.
When they just give you one graph, like 1, 2, 3, and then 98, 100, it's just a straight line.
Mm-hmm. Okay. 3.5, 83. Yes. 2, 75. 1, 60. 2.75, 85. So we're somewhere here.
What's after 1 and 16?
2.5 comma 85. So it's in between 2.5 and 3, and then in between 80 and 90. So it's going to be like right here. 1.5 comma 70 and 3.75 comma 93. So like right here. Okay.
It's positive, right?
Because we've already talked about these a little bit, Seth has come to the conclusion that this is a positive correlation. Why, Seth? It's going up as we travel to the right. So as X is increasing, my Y is also increasing. So this is a positive correlation. You can, if you would like to add that in here somewhere, that this is a positive correlation. CORRELATIO. So this is a positive correlation.
Next slide.
TJ says next flag. He already knows. And guess what, Seth? On the next page, we're going to talk about positive and negative and no correlation.
The first one is
Well, if it's
positive,
in
the second one is negative, and the third one is no correlation.
Yep.
I don't know.
So when you flip, okay, they're calling it an association on this one. This is the same thing as a correlation. Okay, so they can interchange those two words, association and correlation. Okay, so the first one is going to be a positive. Because as X increases, Y increases. Okay. So it's positive because as I'm going to the right on my graph, I'm getting taller. My graph is going up. So as I go to the right, my graph is going up. On the second picture, as I'm going to the right, my graph is going down. So this one, as X increases, Y is decreasing. So this is a negative correlation. The last one is no correlation. The dots are just kind of scattered all over the place. So there's no relationship between X and Y. So this is no correlation or no association. And there is no relationship between X and Y. Okay, there's no pattern happening here. It's just kind of all over the place. Questions? The bottom part of this flap talks about some abnormalities that may show up in your scatter plot. Okay? Something that's not normal. So, a cluster is a set of closely grouped data. The data can cluster around a point or around a line. Okay. So looking at this graph about the basketball shooting, shots attempted and shots actually made. Do you see any clusters in this graph? Yes. There's actually two clusters. You've got a cluster here and a cluster here. So there's two clusters.
What's that one thing up there?
Husta says, ooh, what is that one thing way out there? It's an outlier. An outlier is a data point that is very different. Guess what? That's the other math I teach. Discrete math. Honors.
I'm gonna be there next week.
You kind of have to pass Math 2 and Math 3 before you can take discrete. It's your point. AP, AP Calculus, and AP Statistics will be offered.
Those can be off.
Because as of next year, I will be teaching AP Statistics.
That's what
But what?
I don't.
Because I want to.
I'm going to.
I'm hoping to be nothing but AP Statistics and discrete. I like teaching the seniors.
I have a question. Wait, you don't like us?
I know I love you guys, but
No, you don't.
I like working
This
with the
class-
seniors.
This class,
Just think, because I also teach math too.
I know you like.
So, I could end up having this entire class again next year in math too,
Some of us not gonna make it.
and then see you all senior year again. I could have you 3 different times.
Some folks not
I
gonna
would
make
like to have you, but I wouldn't want to come.
Some people got 6 out of 31 out of 10.
Some people got 5.
Okay, so Husto said yes, I have an outlier. This is my outlier at 35, comma, that looks maybe like 28 or 29.
29.
Okay. If you can put 28 or 29. Okay. You really can't tell.
I thought the word was outline.
So an outlier is just some dot that's kind of like out in space and it doesn't really go with the pattern that's there. So if this was not an outlier, it would have fallen probably somewhere in like the 20s. Okay. Or the late teens is where that should have fallen if it wasn't an outlier. It would have been more in the pattern. Okay. Last flap. A trend line. A trend line is a straight line that comes as close as possible to the points on the scatter plot. There are approximately the same number of points above and below the line. Yes, this is your line of best fit.
Ignore any outliers.
Ignore any outliers. Okay, so you can call this your best fit line. We did, partially. Okay, so a trend line is another way to call your line of best fit.
Like yeast.
Okay, so they want us to draw a trend line. I guess I need to pass out rollers, huh? Sure. Okay, so remember though, when you draw your trend line, we don't need to pick colors, just give them some rulers.
Take what you get.
Right. Okay, so when you draw your line of best fit or your trend line, you want to try to make sure that you have the same amount of dots above it as you have below it. So I'm going to draw mine probably like right in here. somewhere.
Why didn't you just do those 3 dots that actually measure?
Because you want to have the same amount of dots above your line as you have below your line, ignoring outliers. So I kind of ignored this dot because this is an outlier. Okay. So when I drew my line, I've got Rashawn, lose the earbuds. You know better.
You listening to Little Black?
I don't care what he's listening to. The phone's gonna be mine if I see them again.
Oh, you dropped it. Pick it up.
I don't care. They need to not be in your ear and need to not be seen. So
Take this back. I hate wood. I'll just use it for this.
Just use your arm, man.
I hate wood.
Oh!
What's wrong with this?
okay. So listen. Brenda asked why I drew my line through these 2 dots. Okay, it says you want to ignore your outliers. So I ignored my outlier that's here. That's my outlier. Okay. I have 3 points above my dot and 3 points below my dot. So that's as close as I can get it to be best fit for this data. Okay. I kept 3 lines above and 3 dots below. Okay. Now that you have a trend line, they want to know how much you should expect to pay in repairs if I have an 8-year-old car.
$1,000.
Okay, about $1,000. So at 8 years, approximately $1,000. I mean, think about it. The more you run your car, the more you're going to spend to fix it. Because the more miles you have on it, the more wear and tear you have.
I have a question. Oh, I was talking about mileage. What is mileage? Like, is it
Right.
How many miles you put on your
Why
car?
is it a point how many miles you drove in the car?
Because it wears and tears on your engine and your alternator and your tires and your brakes and your
It's almost the alternator.
usually that's usually the first thing to go.
Now that's the most important thing.
Between that and the engine, yeah.
Oh, that had to get in.
Okay, so they want us to use the scatter plot above to write an equation. They want me to find the slope. Okay, so in order to find the slope, we want to find 2 points on this line. So I would probably use 8, 1,000. Okay, we said an 8 that we can use pretty easily.
6,800.
6,800. We're not quite at 6,800.
5,400.
400.
5,500.
5, careful. That's more like 5,
700.
600.
But that's not.
That's
on the dot.
500. Cause in between
But
five,
it's
never mind. In between five and oh shit.
Look, keep looking up. 700 too.
I mean, we could technically really use like 1, 100 too. No, we're trying to find on the line.
Oh.
The line.
2,200.
We could do 3, 200.
3,300. 3,300.
Yeah, yeah.
That's more like 3,350.
Let's do it like that.
You want to do 3,350?
Right.
We could do 3,350. Okay. So we need to use the 2 points to find the slope. So I'm going from 350 to 1,000. So what's my change in Y? 650. I'm going from 3 to 8. So what's my change in X? 5. And 650 divided by 5 is 130.
Whoa.
So on average, what this is saying, on average, you would spend
$130
$130
per year.
a year. Okay.
More than that.
Some cars are more than that.
This do not, okay?
Hey,
I mean, just between buying tires are more than $130.
question. How much does a Mondrian cost?
What did you say?
I have no idea. Listen, I drive a Subaru
You know,
Legacy.
I got a bus.
well, I like brand school.
Huh?
You bring a Mondrian.
A what?
I mean, if you own one and you have a license and you can drive it,
Okay. Cool.
I crashed
not?
before.
I'm gonna be like that.
Oh.
find the y-intercept.
0.
0,0. Think about it. If you don't own a car, you're not spending any money on a car.
More.
Shut up.
That's it. No more down for the day.
Okay, so y equals 130x plus 0, or just y equals 130x.
I wanna see that car battery.
Well, if you want to check out, you can be outside.
Okay,
You know what? We got one of those charging
You gonna
stations.
Elon Musk
It's like the next to where they keep parking.
Elon Musk, all of them.